Here's why you need to consider Breckenridge, Colorado for your next vacation home. Breckenridge, Colorado is located just 1.5 hours from Denver International Airport, and Denver is a central hub for flights across the country, so it makes it super convenient and very easy to get to from Denver International Airport. And we're host to one of the best ski resorts in all of Colorado and all of the country. Breckenridge Ski Resort, with 5 different ski peaks, offers a major variety of different types of skiing, from double black extreme terrain to green family-friendly runs that'll take you right to downtown. And that will bring us to the first pro of Breckenridge is Main Street. So Main Street, Breckenridge is a very happening street. Tons of restaurants and bars for you and the family and friends to go hang out after a day of skiing. There's tons of history there with the old historic district, preserving a lot of the buildings that were built during the gold rush for Breckenridge, and you can see that as you're walking down Main Street. Tons of history, very old Western style mining cabin feel, and it looks really, really cool as you're walking down Breckenridge. There's always something happening. With over 80 restaurants and bars in downtown, there's always something to do. And it's one of the best things about living in Breckenridge, Colorado. Certainly in Summit County, Breckenridge is going to have the best Main Street with the most amount of nightlife and the most amount of options for food and entertainment. Number 2 pro of being here in Breckenridge and why you should buy a vacation home, as I mentioned earlier, is going to be the ski resorts. We've got 5 different mountain peaks at this ski resort for a total of 2,800, give or take, acres of skiable terrain. As I mentioned, if you get to the very top of Breckenridge for about 1.5 months or so, you get some really epic terrain. This obviously depends on the amount of snow that we get, but you can have double black, really advanced, gnarly terrain at your leisure. And then if you want some more family-friendly terrain, you want to take this kids skiing, or maybe you're not too good and you just want to take a chill run, you can look towards the bottom half of the mountain where there are abundance of different types of greens and blues. Now keep in mind, if you are from the east or from the Midwest, our greens are going to be slightly steeper than the greens that are found out on the east or the Midwest. So keep that in mind. But that being said, our skiing is a lot better in terms of the snow quality. I grew up in New York originally, so a lot of the skiing that we had was very icy type of skiing, mainly because the winters were very humid and we had a lot of overcast. So it would snow, albeit not that often, and these ski resorts would basically have to keep blowing snow to keep the runs alive. But that humidity and that overcast tend to freeze the runs over, so it makes for a very hard ski pack. A lot of times it'd be very icy, so you'd have to really learn how to grab a nice edge. Here in Colorado, Breckenridge specifically, the snow is not like that. We get champagne powder, being 10 to 12,000 feet above sea level on the ski resort. And with the sun shining most days, after it snows, the snow will soften up in the heat of the sun. So you get these really nice, soft turns. Even if it hasn't snowed for a while, you'll rarely find ice on our ski resorts, which is really, really cool. So although we are steeper than a lot of the East Coast mountains, our snow is a lot better and a lot more forgiving if you fall. So definitely one of the pros about our ski resort here in Breckenridge, Colorado. On top of that, we have tons of on-mountain options for food and dining. Vail Resorts keeps them very busy and stocked with all of the things that you'll need, from coffee to hot chocolate to burgers to Bloody Marys on the mountain. Whatever you're really feeling, you can certainly get it on the mountain. There are a number of terrain parks as well, if that is your thing that you like to do. There is some backcountry access on Peak 9, Peak 10, and further as well. So tons of options here in Breckenridge and Summit County in general. We do have Keystone as well, which is about a 15-minute drive from Breckenridge. Copper Mountain, which is about a 20-25-minute drive, depending on weather and traffic. You also have Arapahoe Basin, which is just past Keystone, and we have Loveland Basin, which if you head up I-70 going back east for about 10-15 minutes, you will end up at Loveland Basin. So we have a plethora of great ski resorts, and if you want next level skiing, you can go over to Vail and Beaver Creek, and it's just that much farther away from Summit County that it won't get as many crowds on the weekdays. So again, tons of great skiing options here in Breckenridge and Summit County, as well as surrounding areas. Some of my favorite options for dining and bar scene in Breckenridge are going to be Blue River Bistro, which has a really great happy hour. Rootstock, if you're looking for a fancy Italian style dinner, it's gonna be a little bit pricier, but definitely worth the money. Breckenridge Distillery is one of my favorites. They have an award-winning menu from a top chef in New York, and they have incredible food, incredible happy hour, and probably the best cocktails in all of Breckenridge. And the Breckenridge Distillery has their own shuttle system, so if you want to take the shuttle from downtown to Breckenridge Distillery, as it's just off of Main Street, not really walking distance, you can take their shuttle. So they will shuttle you from anywhere in Breckenridge right to the restaurant, which is an added bonus and a huge benefit if you do not want to drive, and especially if you've had a cocktail or two at this altitude. Definitely not advisable to be driving your car, so check out one of those restaurants for an awesome experience. If you want a cool bar scene or nightlife, I recommend checking out Rocky Mountain Underground, Gold Pan Saloon, Brooklyn's if you like to play pool. And one of my favorite options in Breckenridge is going to be Opry Ski. It's pretty much just a bar, and they have some games that you can grab for you and your friends to play, from cards, different types of board games. So it's a great little thing to do after the ski day. Go have a couple of drinks, play some games with your friends, laugh it up. And then there's just so many other options to have in Breckenridge. They've got some great treats for after skiing, a mountaintop cookie shop. You can go to the crepe bar and get some crepes, which if you have not had crepe on Main Street, it is incredible. So I highly recommend checking that out as well. And a bonus pro about Breckenridge is going to be that every day, at least in the wintertime, it feels like a Hallmark Christmas movie, especially once they light up the town for Light Up Breck. They have all of the pine trees and aspen trees tangled up in lights, and it literally is incredible when the snow is falling and you're walking down Main Street, especially in the Riverwalk Center where the main light up ceremony happens. I swear it feels like you are in a Hallmark movie, and there is no cooler place to be, especially Christmas and New Year's time, than Breckenridge. So that is one of the bonus features about having a vacation home in Breckenridge, is that you just feel like you're in a movie. All right, so we are heading into winter season, but I did want to mention briefly that Breckenridge has the highest abundance of biking and hiking trails on either side of the valley. So if you are an avid mountain biker or an avid hiker, there are tons of different trails that you have at your disposal. And one of my favorite biking trails is right on the east side of the valley in Breckenridge. So if you are looking to do that come summertime, you can do that to your heart's content. And it's really some of the best mountain biking and hiking that you can find in all of the state, especially with the 10-mile range into the background as you're hiking. There is just really not many places that have better views than Breckenridge. Another pro about Breckenridge is that everything is practically walking distance or a shuttle stop away from where you need to be. We have our own grocery store. We have a hardware store that is a little bit outside of town, but still close enough, about a 5-minute drive or so you can get all of the things that you need for home projects, DIY projects, things like that. But generally speaking, once you park your car at your home in Breckenridge, especially if you're in the downtown core or near Main Street, everything is pretty much walking distance or we have the Summit Stage, which is our tax-funded shuttle system, but it is free to use every day. There's no ticketing system or anything like that. Just go to the Summit Stage and one of their many stops along the roads, and you can take that Summit Stage to anywhere in the county, not just Breckenridge, but if you want to go grocery shopping, you can take the shuttle to the grocery store, you can take the shuttle to the ski resort, you can take it to downtown and grab a bite to eat. Pretty much anywhere you want to go, the shuttle will take you there. And if you live right around downtown, it's pretty much a 10, 15, 20-minute walk to anywhere you have to go. And get used to seeing a lot of people walking. Yeah, you'll see tourists walking Main Street, but the locals who live here are very, very active, more so than the average American, that's for sure. So you will see that they walk and bike pretty much everywhere. It's true for that in the rest of Summit County as well. We have, according to a report done by the US News, we have an average life expectancy of 98.9 years, which almost makes us a blue zone. If you don't know about blue zones, I highly recommend checking out the Netflix documentary about it. It basically highlights these areas around the world where people have a life expectancy of 100 years or more. I'd say the only reason we don't have that life expectancy is because of the altitude. As people get into their later years, if they have any kind of lung problems, the altitude can affect you. But with a life expectancy of 98.9 years, it just goes hand in hand that we have a very active community. So if you like to walk, if you like to hike, if you like to be active, this is the community for you. And again, it's a huge benefit. If you're living in Breck, everything is walking distance for you. Now let's talk about some cons in Breckenridge. Obviously, it's not all sunshine and rainbows, although most days pretty much is. These cons really aren't huge cons, but they are things to consider when you do have a vacation home in Breckenridge. Breckenridge is a very tourist-heavy destination. In fact, our primary source of revenue in the county is tourism. That is the main industry here in Breckenridge, and it drives our entire economy. And there are some cons that go with that, being tourism can get pretty out of hand, especially during the holidays and peak ski season. So it's not uncommon to find traffic in downtown Breckenridge. It might take you a little while longer than expected to get from place to place, which is why I highly recommend parking your car and either taking the bus or walking to where you have to go, especially if you're talking Christmas week or President's Day weekend or something like that. And then with the weather, roads can get icy and traffic accidents can happen in icy and snowy conditions, especially when you do have tourists around that are not used to these kind of driving conditions. They're coming from lower elevations or warmer places like Florida and Texas, and they're not very used to snow, so it's something to be aware of. And yeah, it's just definitely can be a con when you have an insane amount of tourism. Breckenridge gets millions of visitors every year to come skiing, to come hang out and enjoy what Breckenridge has to offer. So it is something to definitely note when you buy a vacation home here in Breckenridge. Another con is that it is far away from other types of things that you would normally shop for if you live next to like a Lowe's or a shopping outlet. You're not going to find that in Breckenridge. You're not going to find things like fast food, except we have a Subway on Main Street, oddly enough. You won't find fast food in Breckenridge. Lowe's is going to be a 20-minute drive in Dillon, just north in the county. And then we are about 20 minutes off of I-70, so it's not as easy to just hop on I-70 to get to Denver. So again, if the traffic is bad or if the weather is bad, it can add an extra 20 to 40 minutes to your trip to get down to Denver International Airport, or just get to Denver in general. Breckenridge is kind of its own little bubble. It's not too far or too inconvenient as compared to a lot of mountain towns like Steamboat, which is about 2.5 to 3 hours from Denver, Crested Butte, which is about 4 hours from Denver. We are like the first mountain community off of I-70, so we do have that benefit. But we, in Breckenridge, again, small little bubble, so you're not going to find things like Lowe's or a shopping outlet or fast food or those things that maybe generally you go to on a daily basis. You're just not going to find that here in Breckenridge. A lot of locally owned mom and pop shops and startups. So that's what you can expect in Breckenridge. Another con of Breckenridge, and this is the biggest one and one that we hear about all the time, talked about by our town council and the county commissioners, as well as it's a rampant problem all around Colorado. Housing is expensive here in Breckenridge. The median home price is a little over $1 million. We do have some outliers, which is why I don't like to use the average for my data. Sometimes we'll get home prices, or home sales I should say, in the $5 to $10 million price range, which bumps up the average price to about 1.5. But the median is going to be about $1 million for a standard residential home here in Summit County. And that doesn't mean a single family, that just means residential. So that could be condo, townhome, duplex, or single family, which is the bulk of our residential inventory here. Single family homes under $1 million are pretty much impossible to find in our market unless you look in Dillon and Silverthorne. There are a handful that are kind of fall into that under $1 million price range. Usually they're pretty outdated, very small homes. You'll find some old school A-frames or Swiss chalets that you can find, but it's pretty tough to go and find a single family home under that price range. That's just the nature of our market. We have a very limited supply of homes in our county, about 34,000 plus or minus in total, and we get millions of visitors every year to come enjoy what the Rocky Mountains and Summit County has to offer. So the demand is very high. So it really is just an issue of supply and demand, basic law of economics here. And it's unfortunate because we have a lot of locals that are priced out of the market and we don't have a lot of mainstream industry here. Our industry is driven primarily through tourism, which is where our tax revenue comes from. We have a lot of second and third homeowners here, vacation homeowners. So they're coming to enjoy the mountains and be a tourist while they're here, more or less. So besides tourism, hospitality, construction, and real estate, you won't find mainstream industries such as big commercial businesses like Fortune 500 companies. You won't find industrial warehouses or big manufacturing plants. You won't find the tech industry is out here, although there are remote workers that choose to live here full time. The industry is not here in Summit County. You're going to find it down in Denver or in other places around the country like New York, California, San Francisco, Dallas, places like that. So you might be thinking, what is the investment play here in Summit County? Usually I turn investors away if they're looking for a deal, and that's because of our limited supply and high demand. It's just hard to find a deal. About maybe 1 in 1,000, you'll get lucky and you might find a deal. And with 34,000 households in the county, you're talking about 34 chances to make a deal happen. So it's very tough. I would advise against it. Do not invest for the short term here. It's hard to even get a property that short-term rents to leverage to a return, meaning that you can't just put 20% down on a property, put that property on Airbnb, hire a property management company, and expect to make a return, because the numbers just don't pencil with the studio and single bed condos going for $500,000 to $600,000 and more in some cases. Putting 20% down means $100,000 to $150,000 down, and then a property management company is going to take at minimum 20 to 25% of your revenue. Yes, they're very steep here in Summit County, but a lot of them are very good and they take care of everything for you. Then you have to factor in your HOAs, which on average are about $600 to $700 a month. They usually cover everything except electric. In some cases, they do cover that as well. And when I say cover everything, I usually mean gas, heat, Wi-Fi, snow removal, trash pickup, water, sewer, things of that nature. But you can just start seeing as these expenses start adding up, and then you tack on the 12.5% lodging tax that Breckenridge adds. It's just really tough to generate a return or cash flow on your property unless you're leveraging 50 to 100% down on that property. So the investment play in my mind is think of these properties as, first of all, an investment for your lifestyle if you want to just have fun and get away from the everyday nonsense of city life or whatever, and you want to enjoy the outdoors, invest for the lifestyle, number one. And number two is look at it as like a second bank account, right? If you hold on to this property for 7 to 10 years, you're going to benefit from the appreciation that you get on the property. And then as well, you can start generating some revenue by short-term renting, long-term renting, mid-term renting, however you want to do it. And you can offset some costs along the way, but do not look at it as a short-term investment. It's just tough to do things like fix and flips or things of that nature. I think if you want to really get creative, you can do some owner financing, creative financing, get a private money lender, and maybe you can make the numbers work. But even still, I found it's very, very tough to do in this market. So look long-term when you're buying real estate here in Breckenridge. Think 7 to 10 years down the road. And because of our limited supply, your property is going to appreciate. So now you want to know, how far is my money going to take me in Breckenridge? And that is a very nuanced question with a very nuanced answer. And this is highly because of the short-term rental regulations that were imposed in 2021 to limit the amount of short-term rentals available in the town of Breckenridge. On a side note, the Colorado Property Owners for Property Rights has gathered together a couple hundred property owners and are currently suing the town of Breckenridge for these short-term rental regulations. They insist that this is a form of rent control, which is up to debate at this point. But under Colorado state law, rent control is illegal. And the town kind of made these regulations arbitrarily with not a lot of data. They claim they had this nexus study. They showed it to us. The numbers didn't really make any sense. And us as realtors and property owners were basically saying that there is no correlation between short-term rentals and the lack of affordable housing. It is just a supply and demand issue, which it has always been here in Summit County. 2 years later, the data is coming out now that short-term rentals really did not have any effect on the lack of affordable housing. In my opinion, the solution, which, you know, I don't know if I want this, and I guarantee a lot of owners out here do not want this as well, but it's to start changing the zoning laws to allow for higher density housing in the town cores, which unfortunately would mean that they'd have to build up instead of out. We got a lot of protected land, national forest space, and we're just not going to build on that land because the government isn't going to give it to us. So the solution would be to start building high rises, but personally, I don't want to see high rises in Summit County or Breckenridge, but that is kind of, you know, one of the solutions. The other one is to incentivize builders by giving them tax credits or concessions or something so they can go ahead and develop one of the thousands of acres that the town of Breckenridge owns. But anyway, I digress. Let's go back to where your money will take you in Breckenridge. And basically you're looking at anywhere from $700 to almost $2,000 a square foot. Yeah, it's a very big fluctuation, but again, it's the short-term rental regulations. So if you're looking at the town on a map, the town has divided up the town into different zones that allow for short-term rentals, some of them, and the other ones are considered neighborhood zones. So they have capped the amount of short-term rentals that are allowed in those zones. So you're seeing those property values are starting to soften a little bit, about 5 to 10% on average, and the properties that can get a short-term rental license are still demanding top dollar. So we are seeing anywhere from $1,000 all the way to $2,000 a square foot. Was a recent sale at the base of Peak 8 in Breckenridge. So if you want to get a short-term rental property, you are going to pay for it. Bust out the checkbook because they are not cheap. But if you want to take advantage of the situation right now as it stands with the short-term rental regulations, you can get a property in the neighborhood zone in Breckenridge for slightly cheaper than you could have about 6 months to a year ago. And that's generally just a short-term thing. You know, 7 to 10 years, again, like I said, supply and demand, you're going to come out on top, guys. And that's pretty much what you should expect investing here in Breckenridge, Colorado. I know it's not my typical property tour video although I do like to showcase what's available for sale here in Breckenridge because the homes are super cool. I want to answer the questions that you guys have about why should I invest in a vacation home in Breckenridge as opposed to somewhere else. And generally speaking, it's going to be proximity to Denver. Being an hour and a half to Denver International Airport is super beneficial, where most of our mountain communities like Steamboat, Crested Butte, Vail, Aspen, you are looking a much farther drive, which adds to the headache. And you can just picture it, right? You want to go book a ski vacation trip, so you have to obviously book the trip, but then you got to drive to the airport, sit in the airport for 2 hours, take your 2 to 3 hour flight, get to Denver, get your rental car, which is going to take about 45 minutes to an hour, and then drive an hour and a half to Breckenridge. By that time, you're pretty much done. If you had to add another 2 to 3 hours just to get to your mountain community after traveling all day commercially, it is just a total pain in the butt, and it's not something that you're going to want to do. So I think proximity to Denver is going to be the biggest benefit for you guys when it comes to investing in a home in Breckenridge. And generally speaking, our real estate's going to be cheaper than most of the other mountain communities around the state, which is ironic because you have to spend that much extra time to getting there or fly private to one of the private smaller airports around the state. So I think there's tons of benefit to investing in Breckenridge, and then with that cheaper real estate price comes a cheaper lifestyle, I guess you could say, and more of a down-to-earth community type of vibe, where if you go to Aspen, Vail, I've seen it before, you just have this more affluent type of lifestyle, not so much community oriented, but more ostentatious, flashy. It's about what you're wearing and this, that, and the other thing. But Breckenridge is going to be it. As you can see, I'm in a polo right now. This is like what I wear to work most days. So I hope you guys found this helpful. If you guys have any questions about investing into a vacation home here in Breckenridge, Colorado, or what it's like to live here, feel free to email me or send me a text or call me, or you can set up a time to chat through my Calendly link that you'll find in the description below, and we can talk all about what the future holds for you here in Breckenridge. I'm going to break down some other towns as well and answer some other questions about cost of living, new building developments, and obviously continue with the property tours. So yeah, I hope you guys found this helpful, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Please subscribe if you haven't already. It really helps me out and pushes this content to people who need their questions answered when it comes to investing into a home in Breckenridge and Summit County. Feel free to share it with somebody who you think might find it useful. Again, thank you guys so much, and I'll see you in the next video.